my degree collection, I have quite a bit of fabric left over from all the different looks, so I'm going to create an extended collection of several pieces from the same fabrics, exploring the ideas I never got the time to expand on before. And since my fabric supply is quite limited, I thought I'd use my newly acquired 3D simulation skills and quickly mock up an idea I had when making my look number 7. I reused the same top portion of the skirt but substituted the printed cotton with leather offcuts and added pleating with crumbling to the bottom. Since it was a quick mock-up, I didn't bother making everything perfectly, but I was very happy with my decision to make it because I could test out different colours and lengths right away without wasting any of my actual fabric. Freaking love Chloe 3D and the fact that I completed this course. And this was the outcome I landed on. My dad and I went back to that random factory to get some more wire for my new experiment. My time-lapse didn't save, but this is what I've been working on for a while. We just purchased this very thick 5mm wire that would be replacing this one, but this is just temporary for me to realize which way I want everything to go. This is sort of like a giant version of a paperclip, which is wrapping it around the body of the mannequin. I initially thought of it going around the bust, but then I thought about bending out the shape of a paperclip a little bit so this goes underneath, sort of like a cup shape. Your top portion would be strapped around this bending wire. I wanted to make it a little bit more interesting without connecting the side piece, so I'm thinking of continuing the wire to go up until maybe the side of the boob so that this fabric would be still held in place and there would be this beautiful, cheeky, completely nude side piece. I feel like that would be very interesting, and then this area would also be just naked on the body. I was sketching out multiple different ideas of this top and I was thinking of making it as a dress, so if I were to continue it as a dress, this panel would go here and then I would try different ways of stretching out this jersey. And also this is just a random old t-shirt that my dad gave to me so that I could reuse it somehow, and this is the way I decided to reuse it. And I'm quite happy with the front and side portions, but then the back is something I'm really not happy with, so that's what I'm going to be working on right now. I think it's way too much fabric in comparison to what I have in the front, and I wouldn't say that I have to keep it all naked essentially, but I am not happy with the amount I have in here. I think maybe I could recreate something that I had on the top of look number 2 and 4. They both have sort of like a racer back which continues from here, so that's what I'm going to be working with. It's been maybe a couple of days since I worked on it. I'm not super keen on this paperclip, so I'll probably be changing that as well, and maybe this would help me create it a little bit more symmetrical in terms of the amount of weight of fabric that's happening on the back and front. And so began the very awkward process of bending the wire over top of my wobbly mannequin. So I deliberately got a thicker wire this time. This is 5mm wire, previously I had 4mm, and what I did not anticipate is how fucking huge of a difference 1mm makes in terms of how easy it is to bend. I tried to bend it at the place where we got this wire from, but maybe I didn't try it enough, because clearly I cannot copy directly what I have on a mannequin right now. I have very sharp and pointed edges, which obviously is a lot easier to do with this very thin wire that I have on a mannequin right now. I'm just saying I'm gonna have to alter the design just a little bit, because already now it goes beyond the areas where it was before. I just have to persevere working a mannequin here, because I somehow found a way to cut my finger open, and by the way, trigger warning if you're afraid of blood, but I managed to cut my finger open with a pretty dull wire edge. Like obviously it has a little bit of sharp edges, but because I went very quickly, very fast, and with a lot of pressure on the edge, I managed to cut myself open. So I'm gonna have to go and get a band-aid now, but then probably persevere and continue working from home. And it's very difficult. I used multiple different objects to wrap my wire around pretty much like this, and my arms, my legs, like everything. With my previous wire, it was a lot easier to bend it, not just because it was a millimeter thinner, but also because I did it in an atelier where they had an object with similar circumference but made out of metal, and it was very heavy, so it was a lot easier to bend against it because it wasn't really moving. And now I just have to try and put my pressure of my whole body onto an object with a lot of pressure onto the wire so that that doesn't move. I'll try to continue from home just because I need the mannequin. I bend the shape, I check on a mannequin bend and check on a mannequin, so I'm gonna have to continue from home, but I'll probably ask the atelier if I could borrow the object from them next week and continue maybe doing with that. I'm gonna continue working with it because I love the result. I love how thick it is. It keeps the idea. It is very sturdy. It kind of looks more sophisticated if I use wire like this, but I hope I don't slash myself open anytime again, so I'll go get a band-aid and continue. As weird as this looks, this pose was the most comfortable way I found to simultaneously stop my mannequin from falling over and add some resistance to its body. But afterwards I found that simply laying it on a soft flat surface and using my entire body to hold it in place was an even better method. The wire bending went pretty well apart from my cut finger. I have just finished bending it and you see there is a long piece sticking out which I'm gonna have to cut, and I made a little marking as to where it should happen once I get to the atelier because they have very strong wire cutters and I'll be able to round out those sharp edges which I managed to cut myself on. If you look at it from the side, this is where the breast would be, this is where the body would go. You can see that this area is sticking out just like maybe 2-3 centimeters from the body, and I might adjust it when I get a chance to cut this down and be able to wear it again, but I might also keep it and just stretch some pieces of fabric through those areas and keep it a little bit more three-dimensional from the side. That could be an interesting silhouette changer. We'll see how that goes, but for now I'm gonna continue working on a mannequin, change the backing of that top/dress because I don't really like how the back looks, but I'm quite happy with this. I like how thick that is, I like how it looks three-dimensional, so once I get a chance to cut it down I'll be able to continue working with the actual final piece. I brought some wire into the atelier as well to cut a new piece out. This is what I've been working on, just kind of randomly without any specific sketch, and I do like the general shape of it, and also I like that this detail is kind of loose and I could potentially tie it to the back portion of the metal piece. It's essentially like a bent out of shape paper clip, just the same as the last one, but the way it hugs the boob from the left side is a little bit different. So I was thinking of integrating this into some sort of jacket that I could make so that this front closure would rely on this little piece. So imagine if there was like a little strap which I could kind of hook this thing into, and then it would sit in place closed via that thing, or maybe make the boob section have like a little strap that this would go inside of so that it could hold its shape. Generally I kind of like it, but I'm thinking of forcing this little line to repeat the shape of this boob cup so that there would be some repetition. Thought I'd share with you how my behind the scenes of filming a sketchbook tour looks like. I'm filming outside just because the lighting is the best. Also, look at those flowers, they're gorgeous. And so I'm using this ladder, which I've strapped a grey tape onto with my dad's phone because the quality is a lot better. And then my sketchbook is down there. I'm sitting with my knees on my jacket because it will kill me sitting on those rocks. I have some water on the side just because I try to talk as fast as possible because I don't want to run out of dad's phone memory. So there's a whole lot of things going on when I'm filming those things. Thought I'd share with you, maybe that could be interesting for you. I saved all of that tape, by the way, and had the urge to film it because it looks so elegant when it was draped and stretched out over the roll. Oh my god, am I the only one who finds this so beautiful? Here you can see absolutely nothing of what I'm doing, so just trust me when I say that I'm cutting out the skirt pieces using the same pattern I made for look number 7 skirt. And as you can probably tell, I swapped out the white side pieces which I had on the simulations to red because I had that fabric left over from look number 2 and I just felt that it looked a little bit more complete with that colour. I've been waiting for a chance to top stitch on this heavy denim machine again. I absolutely love how thick the stitching is. I went with a thread that's typically used for stitching shoes together, which I originally bought way back in the summer when I was making my look number 2 skirt, and back then this color wasn't the right fit, so I had to go with a different one, but this time it looked pretty organic with that leather. I got my phone the day I pleated, but instead of adding another panel to the hemline for crumpling, I decided to simply fold this pleated section in on itself and fix the crumples with short 3cm lines using an industrial zigzag machine. And to hide all the raw ugly edges on the inside, I cut out lining from the same fabric as the pleating. When all the lining was constructed and attached, I cut out a straight strip of white fabric and added it to hide the raw edges of lining and pleating on the inside as well, kind of like a bias binding. I just attached this makeshift bias binding. A little wonky, but we'll deal with that. On the other side, I had to kind of pull it away from the original seam that was connecting the skirt pieces together. So what I'm thinking is that I'm gonna have to kind of hand stitch it to the main fabric, the pleated fabric, just because I want it to create a little bit of a three-dimensional effect on the other side. So if you can see this, if the bias bound edge is stitched to the whole thing, it's gonna lift this pleated area a little bit from the side and allow it to sit sit above the leather piece. So I feel like that's going to add a little bit to the visual effect and also be finished from the inside. And other than that, once that is hand stitched, all I'm going to have to do is just hand tie all of the knots from all of the loose threads on the edges, because I was doing a zigzag stitch that was fixing those crumbles in place, and also hand stitch the hemline to the actual thing, because I don't want any loose pieces of fabric. I want it all to be hand stitched just like it is already in this section. So if I kind of touch it, it doesn't flip. I'm going to do that at some point, and then the skirt is going to be finished. And by the way, while I'm going to be hand stitching the hemline, I'm going to be pulling a few of those things a little bit upwards so that it will be a bit more crumpled, just like on the 3D model. But other than that, the skirt is super close to being finished. I really want to see it on a model, or at least on my mannequin. So once I'm done with that, I'm gonna try it on that and show you the final result. Okay, never mind, that's not gonna happen. Just before I started putting on a mannequin, I took a closer look at my skirt, and look what I discovered. Do you see this puckering, this gathering that's happening on here? It's not because the skirt is not lying flat, it is. The reason for that is that my lining is way shorter. That happened when I started stitching the bias binding. Apparently I pulled on the lining way too much, to the point that it started pulling the upper layer of the fabric and creating those gathers. It doesn't happen in every area. For example, left part of the skirt, it looks pretty decent. It doesn't really pull at all, so that's a relief. But when we turn it other way around, you can see that it pulls here a lot more than on the front, and then this area, oh my god, this is a disaster. I'm really hoping that when I seam rip the bias binding that I had just created, and luckily I had not hand stitched it yet, so we're not too deep in, and I'm hoping that when I do that, there's gonna be enough of that lining fabric hidden in the bias so that I could pull it out just a little bit to prevent this gathering from happening, but still have enough of lining fabric to attach it with the bias. Fingers crossed. That's not going to happen in this video. It's going to take me a little while because I'm busy with doing other things, but next week and a week after that, probably you will see the skirt finally complete. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching.